Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Roberto Benetello, and I am the Executive Director of the Business Council for Sustainable Development Malaysia, also known as BCSD Malaysia Berhad. Welcome to this online event entitled COP26 and Beyond, Smart and Sustainable City Planning in Malaysia, Sharing Best Practices. This event is brought to you by BCSD Malaysia, as in collaboration with the British High Commission in Malaysia and the Embassy of Italy in Malaysia. I wish to start by thanking all attendees for spending your afternoon with us today. And I also want to thank the distinguished speakers who have agreed to join us this afternoon. I will introduce them one by one in a few moments. Ladies and gentlemen, before we go into the topic of the day, allow me to remind you who we are. BCSD Malaysia is a CEO-led non-profit organization formed by a group of forward-thinking companies committed to creating a sustainable future for the business, society, and the environment. We are the global network partner in Malaysia of the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, also known as WBCSD. Together with our members, we want to drive systems transformation that are essential to transform to a world where over 9 billion people can live well within the planetary boundaries by mid-century, by 2050. That's our vision. At the same time, we strive to make a more sustainable business more successful. For us, it's very important to create that link between sustainable performance and the success of the company. Like the World Business Council, like WBCSD, we work with business mostly around 6 main program areas where systems transformation is badly needed. And these areas are circular economy, cities and mobility, climate and energy, food and nature, social issues and human rights, and last but not least, reporting and governance. In these areas, we initiate projects with concrete and measurable output, and we provide education, training, and capacity building. All these initiatives take a science-based approach and aim for targeted business solutions to scale up business impact. Ladies and gentlemen, with the COP26 fast approaching, is a couple of weeks from now, it is critical to explore how cities can lead the transformation to a low carbon and climate resilient economy. With an estimated 2/3 of the world population living in cities or in urban areas by 2050, it is paramount that we strive for healthy and inclusive living spaces, thriving in harmony with nature. In this transition, urban planning, architecture, construction, maintenance, real estate, retail, hospitality, and leisure, all these industries have roles to play. Today, our esteemed speakers will share with us some best practices and case studies that can advance awareness and an understanding of the solutions available and at reach. Today's program will last for a couple of hours, actually 2 hours. We're very honored to have BCSD Malaysia's chairman, Professor Tan Sri Zachary Abdul Hamid, to deliver a welcome address. As you know, next month, UK, together with Italy, will host COP26, the 2021 United Nations Climate Change Conference. And in the run-up to COP26, UK and Italy are working with every nation to reach agreement on how to tackle climate change. As part of this extraordinary effort, both countries, through their diplomatic posts around the world, are organizing and supporting events and initiatives such as this one of today that can increase awareness and understanding around COP26 and the necessity to accelerate climate action. All this, ladies and gentlemen, to say that today we are very honored to have the British High Commissioner to Malaysia, His Excellency Charles Hay, MBO, and the Ambassador of Italy to Malaysia, His Excellency Massimo Rustico, to officiate our event with their opening remarks. After that, during the first part of the program, we will have presentations from the industry with speakers from Arup Group and Leonardo, followed by a short Q&A session. Then we will move to the second part. The second part of the program, there will be case studies from the UK and from Italy, followed by what we call a fireside chat, during which we will discuss challenges and opportunities in relation to how some of these best practices and new approaches can be applied in Malaysia. Ladies and gentlemen, before we kick off, allow me to share with you a couple of housekeeping items. The whole proceeding of our event is being recorded. Participants will be kept on mute during the event. However, feel free to type your questions in the question panel. We will review them later on, and if we will have enough time, we will go through the questions. Now, without further ado, let us start the event with a welcome address by our chairman, Professor Emeritus Tan Sri Zachary Abdul Hamid. Professor Tan Sri Zachary is the chairman of BCSD Malaysia, also ambassador and science advisor to the Campaign of Nature, former UN official and senior fellow of the Academy of Sciences Malaysia. He's had a distinguished career in science as a researcher, educator, administrator, diplomat, and also as the former science advisor to the Prime Minister of Malaysia. Awarded the federal honorific title of Tan Sri by Malaysia's head of state in 2014, he served until 2016 as the founding chair of the Intergovernmental Science Policy Platform on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services, IPBES, as the science advisor to Malaysia's Prime Minister, and was one of the 26 members of the UN Secretary General's Scientific Advisory Board. Without further ado, we invite Tan Sri Zachary to deliver the welcome address and officiate the event. Tan Sri, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Roberto, for that generous introduction. I hope the weather in London and Milan are nice, because in Kuala Lumpur, today the weather is good, but yesterday we had horrendous rainfall. The Honorable British High Commissioner to Malaysia, His Excellency Charles Hayes, the Honorable Italian Ambassador to Malaysia, His Excellency Massimo Rustico, distinguished panelists, ladies and gentlemen, let me welcome you to this webinar this afternoon. As part of BCSD Malaysia and WBCSD goals for Vision 2050, we want to drive system transformation, which is essential to transition to a world where 9.5 billion people can live well within the planetary boundaries by 2050. Living well means that everyone's dignity and rights are respected, basic needs are met, and equal opportunities are available for all. By the year 2050, around 2.5 billion more people will be living in cities. That is to say, 2 out of every 3 people are likely to be living in cities or other urban centers. Along with climate change and other challenges, to ensure the quality of life, we are in dire need of more sustainable and resilient urban planning. Our 2050 vision for sustainable cities is to have healthy and inclusive living spaces thriving in harmony with nature, as well as enable safe, accessible, clean, and efficient transportation of people and goods. Climate resilience is a key consideration in infrastructure planning to pave the way for sustainable, resilient, and inclusive cities. And these cities should depend on, value, and maintain strong links to the environment, striving for the restoration of the natural world. Ladies and gentlemen, over the next 10 years, business and policymakers must implement a number of concrete actions that align with our desired transition pathways by unlocking the potential of digitalization to facilitate data recording and transfer among stakeholders, more holistic urban planning, greater transparency, and enhanced efficiency across the built environment sector can be achieved. Emerging technologies can be leveraged to improve infrastructure planning and development, allowing buildings to be future-proof, enabling them to withstand environmental, social, and health-related shocks. Keeping our goals for Vision 2050 and taking into account the call for action for business and policymakers, we welcome you today to this webinar entitled Smart and Sustainable City Planning in Malaysia, Sharing Best Practices. This event is organized by BCSD Malaysia in collaboration with the British High Commission in Malaysia and the Embassy of Italy in Malaysia. Ladies and gentlemen, as we are all aware, next month, the UK, together with Italy, will host COP26 in Glasgow. As part of that extraordinary effort, both countries, through their diplomatic posts around the world, working with every nation to reach agreements on how to tackle climate change. Together, they're organizing and supporting events and initiatives in the run-up to COP26. This collaboration with the British High Commission and the Embassy of Italy, I believe, is a meaningful step towards increasing awareness and understanding around COP26 and the necessity to accelerate action towards the goals of the Paris Agreement and the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. To our esteemed speakers and experts, we thank you for your meaningful contribution and insights on the concept of smart, resilient, and livable cities, and how we can accelerate action towards sustainable transformation. And to all our attendees, we thank you for being here with us today. I look forward to the speakers' presentations and informative speeches. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tan Sri Zachary, for the welcome address. Our next esteemed guest is the British High Commissioner to Malaysia, His Excellency Charles Hay MBO. His Excellency is the British High Commissioner to Malaysia. Prior to his role, Mr. Hay was the ambassador to South Korea from 2015 to 2018. During his time in the British diplomatic services, he has been posted to the Czech Republic, Spain, and the UK representation to the EU in Brussels. His Excellency was also the Director of Consular Services in London, responsible for assisting British nationals in crisis management worldwide. His Excellency is unfortunately unable to be with us today in person, but he has pre-recorded an opening speech for us, which will be broadcast now. Thank you very much.
Tan Sri Zachary Hamid, BCSD Chairman, Ambassador Massimo Rustico, Ambassador of Italy to Malaysia, panelists, guests, ladies and gentlemen. 2 years ago, when the UK became the president-designate of COP26, less than 30% of the world economy was governed by net zero or carbon neutrality commitments. This included the UK as one of the first major economies to legislate for a net zero goal. But today, over 80% of world GDP is covered by a net zero or carbon neutral commitment. This is a remarkable turning point. And newly joining this group, of course, is Malaysia, with a very welcome carbon neutral goal announced by the Prime Minister in the 12th Malaysia Plan just a few weeks ago. This marks a remarkable increase in climate ambition as we look forward to COP26 in Glasgow. The objective of COP26, of course, is to keep alive the Paris Agreement goal of limiting global warming to below 1.5 degrees Celsius. Climate action in urban environments will be essential to delivering these goals. From the built environment to nature-based solutions, from energy use to technological innovation, cities are at the heart of climate action. Many challenges of urbanization, of course, are also climate challenges, from adaptation to extreme rain or heat, waste management and efficient transport. But urban solutions can and should also be climate solutions, and we have to seize the opportunities to align the two. I'm delighted that two Malaysian local authorities, Kuala Lumpur and Hang Tuah Jaya, have joined the UN's Race to Zero campaign and set their own net zero goals. I strongly urge more to join the Cities Race to Zero campaign and to be part of this global community of action. The UK's support for Malaysia's climate transition includes supporting the move to smart and sustainable cities. The Global Future Cities programme is at the heart of this, and this programme is working in Malacca and Iskandar, Malaysia, to develop and pilot transport solutions for sustainable mobility. The UK has also supported DBKL's development of its 2050 Climate Action Plan, which was the basis for its commitment to the Cities Race to Zero campaign. Earlier this year, in partnership with the Ministry of Housing and Local Government, we launched the Smart City Handbook on Malaysia. This outlines the key technological drivers in smart city development, UK exemplars, and potential models and plans for local adoption. Our newly launched UK PACT programme, or Partnership for Accelerating Climate Transitions, also benefits the Department of Town and Country Planning, or Plan Malaysia. This project aims to strengthen cities' access to land use and carbon emissions data so that planning decisions can take these carbon implications into account. At COP26, one of the thematic days of the UK's presidency programme on November the 11th will focus on cities, regions and the built environment. And this will illustrate ambitious action by city and regional leaders to deliver a climate-resilient, low-carbon built environment. COP26, of course, is being hosted in partnership with Italy. And today's webinar represents a further example of this partnership to share lessons from Italy, as well as the UK and Malaysia, on how to further advance smart and sustainable city development. The challenges of urbanisation and climate change are significant, but I hope that today's webinar, COP26 and beyond, will show that by approaching them together, we can also find opportunities to improve people's lives and to achieve inclusive, sustainable development. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much to His Excellency Charles Hay for this opening address. Today, we are also honored to have His Excellency Massimo Rustico, Ambassador of Italy to Malaysia, to share a few words with us. His Excellency Massimo Rustico is the newly appointed Ambassador of Italy to Malaysia, As a fellow Italian, I take this opportunity to welcome you to Malaysia, Ambassador Rustico. A very good welcome to you.
Thank you.
Prior to this appointment, Ambassador Rustico was ambassador of Italy to Hungary. Before that, he served as the Italian at the Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation as a coordinator for the international business development of the Italian construction industry. During this period, he was assigned to ANCE, the National Association of Construction Companies. His Excellency has also been awarded the honors of Knight Officer of the Order of Merit of the Republic in 1992 and Commander of the Order of Merit of the Republic in 2021. Let's give a warm welcome to His Excellency Massimo Rustico to deliver the opening remarks and kickstart our discussion of today. The floor is yours, Ambassador.
Thank you, Roberto. I would like to thank Professor Emeritus Tansri, Dr. Zahri Abdul Hamid, and you yourself, of course, for the great work that you've been doing as Business Council for Sustainable Development. Of course, my colleague ambassador, His Excellency the British High Commissioner to Malaysia, Charles Hay, and all the other distinguished speakers for their contribution to this forum. A few words on COP26. This should be a crucial turning point in tackling climate change, no question. As 2021 G20 presidency and partner of the UK for the COP26, Italy is committed to give an important contribution to this common endeavor. Italy has hosted the traditional preparatory work conference, namely the pre-COP26 in the city of Milan a few weeks ago. And prior to that, the Youth for Climate Driving Ambition, that was astonishing. We had more than 400 young people participating from more than over 190 member countries of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, including 2 Malaysian young environmentalists, Sahana Kaur, 17 years old, and Mogesh Sababati, 23, who testified the commitment of the young Malaysians in the fight against climate change. Just a few words about what we've been doing in the past few years. Italy, as you may know, has made tremendous progress in the creation of a sustainable economy. It ranks as number 8 as a renewable source installed capacity worldwide, second to Germany in the European Union. We have renewables, which account for 18.3% of gross final energy consumption and for 39% of electricity production, which is quite remarkable, as you can imagine, for a country with a 2 trillion economy country, basically. Apart from the growing shares of renewable, Italy has also established a strategy for affordable green hydrogen, which could be the key to decarbonizing the so-called hard-to-abate sectors, such as heavy industry, aviation, shipping long distance, and heavy-haul road transportation. In a European Union framework, we have reached the target for the reduction of climate-altering emissions, which was set for 2020. We were able to reach it in advance 3 years ahead, which was quite a result that nobody would have gambled for a few years earlier. But let's put it like that. We're launching our commitment. This is a key political decision to even more challenging targets for 2030 through the Integrated National Plan for Energy and Climate. We have the support from the whole political spectrum. It's really shared by the public opinion at large, which is so important. Well, this plan is intended to contribute to a wide-ranging transformation of our economy. In this, the combination of decarbonization, the circular economy, where we are really investing an enormous amount of resources, efficiency, and the rational and fair use of natural resources, represent objectives and instruments for an economy that should be more respectful of people and the environment. Let me quote just a few words by Prime Minister Mario Draghi. He said, "We are determined to put the EU on the right path to achieve a 55% reduction of emissions by 2030 and to zero net emission by 2050. But, and this is a key point, The European Union today is responsible for only 8% of global emissions. So we really understand that this is a worldwide effort on which we really have to put tremendous energy. The Italian engagement on climate change is also taking shape in a new way of thinking about the cities. Smart cities are sustainable, should be sustainable, efficient and innovative, where traditional networks and services are made more efficient with the use of digital technologies and telecommunication for the benefit of citizens and businesses. Just let me quote you a data. According to the ICT Run 2020 report, a study on smart and sustainable Italian cities carried out by the consulting company FPA, Milan occupies the first place in Italy, followed by Florence and Bologna. In this respect, I'm pleased to acknowledge among the speakers of this forum the presence of Mrs. Clara Calegaris, head of a smart city unit within the urban economy and employment department of Milan municipality, who will give us deep insight on the smart project implemented by the city of Milan. In parallel, the Italian landscape has been witnessing an impressive growth of the number of companies, private companies mostly, engaged in the creation of platforms for urban development models based on innovation and sustainability. Among them, I would like to mention Leonardo, the Italian state-owned global high-tech player active in the fields of aerospace, defense, security, and smart technology, without mentioning cybersecurity. In this respect, I welcome the presence today with us of Mr. Andrea Biggio from Leonardo's cybersecurity division, who will tell us about smart and eco-sustainable mobility of tomorrow. I'm concluding saying that in view of what we've been saying so far, I believe that we have common interests and common objectives in developing smart city technologies, sharing them with Malaysia, and we are eager to reinforce our relations at all levels with the government, the people, and the business community of Malaysia. Thank you very much for your attention.
A huge thank you to His Excellency Massimo Rustico for the informative and meaningful keynote. We are very honored to have your presence here with us today. Thank you very much. Now we shall move to the first presentation, Net Zero Buildings, where do we stand? And the presenter is Mr. Chris Carroll. Chris Carroll is director of Arup in London, with more than 30 years experience delivering complex building and structural projects in collaboration with some of the world's most renowned architects. He is a fellow of the Institution of Structural Engineers in the UK and Arup's partnership director, working with the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, WBCSD, to help accelerate decarbonization across the built environment. He has led multidisciplinary project teams that span different geographies to fulfill Arup's clients' architectural vision, while also meeting the commercial, environmental, and societal objectives of each project. So without further ado, Chris, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So yeah, we've spent the last 18 months working with the WBCSD in the area of decarbonisation of the built environment. And there's a trio of reports that have been produced as a function of that work. I'll talk about the building systems carbon framework in a while, but the main report I'm going to talk about here is the Net Zero Buildings, Where Do We Stand, which is a case study report looking at the carbon footprint of 6 buildings. And the third publication is a guidance for investors and developers looking at particularly embodied carbon. And I'll mention that later in the presentation as well. Next slide, please. So the case study report, Net Zero Buildings, Where Do We Stand, take 6 real projects, and you would recognize all of the projects. They use steel, concrete, timber, mixed use development, office development, residential development. And we do a very thorough whole life carbon assessment, looking at both embodied carbon, the construction carbon, and the operational carbon, energy and water use used through the whole life cycle of the projects. And we would say that the projects are all have a sustainability agenda behind them, some more than others. So we could argue that these represent the better end of what's being done at the moment. So maybe bear that in mind when you look through the results. From that work, from the case study work, we pull out 5 very key, clear key messages, which I'll cover now as the structure of this presentation. So the 5 key messages are: we have to move rapidly towards doing this as business as usual, measuring the carbon footprint of everything we do. To do that, we need to share data more openly and more transparently, and a lot more of it. We need to set targets to drive decarbonisation and think decarbonisation in our thinking in terms of design. And we need to better define in the context of those targets what net zero buildings actually mean. And to underpin all of that, we need much wider collaboration. Next slide, please. So the first of those points, move rapidly to measuring the carbon of everything we do. We need a series of things to facilitate that. One is a clear methodology, a clear scope, and a clear reporting framework. Next slide, please. So in the case study work, we've adopted the WBCSD Building Systems Carbon Framework as a method of framing and reporting the carbon footprint of our projects. We've used the Euronorm in terms of which is becoming the kind of de facto methodology for breaking down the different stages of whole life carbon into the construction up front, the green section, the dark blue section, which is the carbon that's consumed via maintenance and replacement during the lifetime, and the energy use during the lifetime, and then the end of life carbon that's either emitted through demolition or is claimed back through recycling and repurposing. And we've used the WBCSD and the RICS methodology in terms of how we scope out the various items. And we put this up. I put this up because this is important, because as we work together and use the data to drive better design and significant systemic reduction in terms of the carbon we use in our building projects, we need this methodology to be thorough, and we need this methodology to be compatible. Next slide, please. And within the case studies, we frame all of the assumptions and descriptions of the buildings and the different building types that we've used, what they're made up of, what their component parts are, and the table on the right hand side is the output that shows where all of the carbon sits within the project. And the important thing is for the project to have a whole life carbon footprint, that whole table needs to be filled in. Next slide, please. The second key message is about the sharing of data and developing of data. We estimate that less than 1% of projects currently have a whole life carbon analysis performed on them. It's probably significantly less than that. and it's a growing it's growing, but it needs to grow more rapidly. We need to move within a period of 12 months or 18 months, 2 years maximum, to be measuring carbon like we measure money on projects. Carbon has to be the new currency on projects. Next slide, please. And to do this, we have to share the data and assumptions to facilitate everybody being able to cost their projects in terms of carbon. So within the report, we frame all the assumptions that we've made so that where people maybe aren't able to calculate things because they don't know what to assume, we're hoping by sharing some of this information that these assumptions can be made and can be consistent. And the assumptions are based on both the construction, the embodied carbon, but also very importantly the grid decarbonisation within particular regions. So typically buildings, the energy of buildings is calculated, but that then needs to be turned into a carbon assessment, a carbon footprint, and aligned with the decarbonisation of the particular grid and the particular geography where the building is. So we're sharing within the report. We're sharing all the assumptions to give you a kind of insight into I guess how to overcome some of the barriers to being able to calculate the carbon footprint of our projects. Next slide, please. And again, we show within the report clearly some of the carbon intensity factors that we've assumed, and there is growing data in this field, but there needs to be much more data and transparency around carbon intensity factors. And we also within the report show very transparently the energy assumptions in terms of the buildings, because quite often say the regulated energy that's calculated is not the real energy. It doesn't include the all of the plug loads within buildings. It doesn't include all of the energy that a building consumes, and it's important that we're capturing everything. Next slide, please. The third key message that we pull out of the report is the need to start to consider and drive targets, so that our designs are driven and improved via targets that are substantiated, built from benchmarks and how those benchmarks might be improved. Next slide, please. And yeah, we would hope that these targets are starting to be thought of in terms of legislation in local areas, and we think that's there's an important part that local governments, authorities need to play in terms of starting to consider legislation in this space, or harder legislation in this space. So we show within the report where we think benchmarks are being presented, business as usual type benchmarks. So for the graph on the left-hand side shows a series of business as usual scenarios around the embodied carbon, the construction carbon used to create the building, the structure, the M&E systems, the facade, etc. And where we think the targets need to start to move to over the next decade. And there are other organisations that are starting to consider and present targets in relation to both embodied carbon and operational energy use, which translates into operational carbon. And we believe the emergence of clearer targets in this space is an important part of the decarbonisation kind of strategy of our projects over the next decade, especially. Next slide, please. So this is a snapshot from the report, and it shows the diagram on the left-hand side shows the embodied carbon, the construction carbon, that is the average of the 6 case studies. So 560 kilos of carbon per square meter is the average across the 6 case studies. And actually, as I said, these case studies already had a sustainability agenda behind them. You saw on the slide previously the benchmark, and the business as usual benchmark being stated around about 1,000. So we'd question whether that benchmark already needs to be adapted, and whether or not these projects are starting to show that we could really start to aggressively drive down the carbon consumption of our projects if we were genuinely focused on carbon being a driving priority for each and every one of our projects going forward. And the diagram on the right-hand side is the embodied carbon, the construction carbon, if you consider the whole life of the project. So we add another 2/3 carbon to the project based on maintenance cycles. So changing the facade, changing the M&E systems within the building. We would add another 2/3 or so of as an average across the 6 case study projects to the projects, and we think this talks to the notion of circular economy. So the challenge is, could we actually design out that additional 2/3 carbon that would occur during the lifetime of the building by thinking about more circular designs, so facades that can be maintained in situ with minimum carbon, M&E systems that don't need to be replaced but can be repurposed, etc. Next slide, please. And these are the 6 case studies in terms of their energy use intensity, and they average around about 110, 120 kilowatt hours per square meter, which we would question whether that is on a trajectory towards net zero and could be considered net zero, and where does that line need to be for these projects to be genuinely considered net zero in operation. And again, an important factor here is a consideration of how the individual grids will decarbonize within the different geographies where the projects sit. And I guess similarly, it's important that targets are based on total energy consumption. We're not ignoring significant amounts of energy use in the way we're doing the calculations. Next slide, please. This is a very important graph. Actually, this is a graph of the 6 case studies, the average of the 6 case studies, but put on a timeline. And this timeline shows you very clearly the importance of upfront embodied carbon. So embodied carbon across the 6 case studies, embodied carbon is 50% of the whole life carbon footprint when we consider the decarbonisation of the grid over time. So it's a very important consideration, but even more importantly, the embodied carbon, the green, is emitted in a very, very large spike at the outset of the project, which is now for any project that we're constructing within the next decade. So really having a focus on that construction embodied carbon, A1 to A5, as it's known in the methodology, is so important, and driving that number down and looking to, you know, systemically change what we do, focus on carbon, and half that that spike is something we should all be focused on. Next slide, please. The fourth of the 5 key messages is we have to be clear about what net zero buildings actually means, when especially in the context of whole life carbon assessment and the whole life carbon footprint. We need a clearer definition. We need definitions that align individual buildings with systems and the industry as a whole, and we need all of that with it at a systems level globally to be aligned with the Paris Agreement. Next slide, please. Because any one of our projects could be net zero if we considered offsetting, which is another topic. Next slide, please. So as I said, at a systems level, we have to balance the demand and supply, and we have to translate that to a buildings level, and what that means related to targets within that buildings. Next slide. And as I said, that has to translate into the scale of the problem. Globally, we have a budget of 400 gigatons of carbon to spend before we go over the 1.5 degree target. So whatever we do within the built-in industry, where we're building globally 5.5 billion square meters per year, and the embodied carbon that's adding globally within the construction industry is in the range of 5 gigatons of carbon per year. So we have to balance all of that within the global budgets that we have. Next slide. And very quickly, the last point is that we can't do this alone. Next slide, please. We have to collaborate across all the parties in the value chain. Next slide, please. And this is just a repeat of the 5 key messages. So I'll not dwell on this. I'll wrap up. And next slide. We're now commencing our next piece of work for the WBCSD, which is looking at a how low can we go scenario. Especially in terms of that big green spike that I showed, is what are the possibilities in terms of what we know now, not in terms of extrapolating technology or guessing how technology might emerge, but using what we know now. If we were to drive projects around lowest possible carbon outcome, what could we achieve now? So this is the next piece of work, which will be another report that comes out hopefully within the next year. And next slide. And this is the final slide. So I would hope that people would look at the website, the WBCSD website. There's a shout out now to contribute case studies using the methodology we've developed within this report. And you can download and read the report, and I urge everybody to do that, along with the other 2 reports that I mentioned from the WBCSD website. All of this is in the public domain now. And I will stop there because I think I've overrun slightly because of the technical hitch. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris. And it was very insightful presentation, especially a couple of messages that I found very powerful. The fact that we need to focus on carbon as a driving priority. The role of carbon as a new currency, very interesting and very true. And the whole life carbon analysis, and the fact that more needs to be done in order to get this approach widely used and widely adopted. Thank you very much, and I hope there is a time a little bit later to have a couple of questions more. Next, we have Mr. Andrea Biggio from Leonardo Cyber Security Division to share with us his presentation on smart and eco-sustainable mobility. Andrea is responsible for bridging commercial and technical matters of business development with focus on foreign markets, with the main development areas being related to cybersecurity in maritime, defense, and space. Andrea has managed a large number of high-tech projects and bids across Europe and the Far East, working also in systems engineering and technology development roles. Over to you, Andrea.
Thank you. Can you hear me well?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I'll share my screen and the presentation. Please confirm that you can see it well.
Yes, we can. You can project the slide.
Okay. So thanks to the organizers, the panelists, and all the attendees today for this opportunity. And thanks for the introduction. So I will spend a couple of words about the Leonardo Group. Leonardo is the former Finmeccanica and is now organizing divisions. We are a leader in the aerospace, defense, and security, and we have an integrated portfolio of solutions for military and civil applications in the frame of helicopters, aeronautics, space, and defense electronics. Within the defense and electronics area, we have the cyber and security division. That is the division where I belong. And we serve three main market areas. One is the police forces and emergency, so the first responders, the public administration and international agencies, and the defense market. And we have the transport, mobility, and critical infrastructures. So Leonardo is basically a security champion, but we have we play an important role also in developing technologies, not only for the safety and security, but also for the sustainability of public administrations, transport systems, etc. And we do that by also investing that is slightly more than 10% of our revenues in research and development. And this put Leonardo at the forefront, at the top level of research in Europe and abroad. We are almost 50,000 people now, and our systems are used in 150 countries. So what is smart and eco-sustainable mobility for Leonardo? Smart and eco-sustainable mobility is a new way of thinking around mobility to make it greener, safer, secure, and more efficient. And it is a way of thinking that we are already implementing. It's not something that is just set into the future. It's also in the present of Leonardo, thanks to the technologies that we have developed in the past and that we are developing. And so we have already an offer portfolio that is specifically dedicated to smart mobility and safe and secure cities and sustainable cities. And we have already applied those technologies in many projects within the world. I will present a couple of use cases relevant to smart and sustainable mobility. And we have participated in those projects both as solution provider towards a system integrator, or being ourselves a system integrator of those solutions. And I want to remark that our platforms are designed and built in Leonardo, so it's a Leonardo technology, and with the objectives to improve safety, security, but also efficiency and sustainability. So what is our portfolio of solutions? The portfolio of solutions starts with the X2030, that is a global monitoring for a safe and sustainable city. So it's a kind of control room, software and hardware that allows to gather information from many different sensors and integrate them to provide decision support to the key stakeholders of a smart and sustainable city. And we will have a bit of focus on this in the next slide, so I will not spend any other words on that. Ganymede is our audio and video analytics platform that can be used for many purposes. One could be the security of the city, identifying, for instance, crowds or fire accidents, but it can be used also for sustainability, as we can analyze the videos also to understand if someone is trying to pollute an area that is supposed not to be polluted. We have the MOBI system, that is our mobility management system. It's basically both the front end and the back end of the mobility management, for instance, for buses and metros. So here there are smart signs, but also route planning and route management, smartphone applications for the public. And those are somehow connected to the Matrix AVM, that is our SCADA system for the management of public transport fleet, and that includes also the service management. So with these, we are able to connect all the vehicles of a transport fleet, gather information from their onboard units. That is the other point, is the eNoble, so the intelligence onboard system that gathers information from all the sensors, such as speed, acceleration, fuel consumption, pollution emissions, but also video analysis, video cameras, and audio. Those information are provided to the Matrix AVM SCADA platform and are correlated to understand if there is a maintenance to be done before the vehicle gets broken, if we have a decrease in efficiency in terms of energy consumption, fuel consumption, etc. And this is presented through the X2030 to the high-level decision makers. Our solutions within the division also include secure communication, so TETRA, DMR, and LTE 5G. And we have a platform that allows us to mix the various technologies to make a seamless network for communication between the operators. So they could be safety operators, they can be police forces, they can be the personnel that is on board vehicles. And this is used for first response, for and for city territory control. And of course, considering that all these technologies that we have and all the technologies that are behind the smart and sustainable mobility, but in general with smart and sustainable cities are connected technologies. So we have 5G, we have IoT, we have a vehicle to everything connections, we have artificial intelligence and big data. So the cloud, everything is connected and need to be cyber protected, because otherwise we may have a very nice and efficient system that is not protected, and someone from the external could put at risk the operations, disrupt the operations, or harm the people that are using the system, such as the citizens or let's say the operators of the system. So a bit of focus on the X2030 platform. This is a framework based on data enhancement and on the C5I paradigm, that is the command, control, the communication, computer, and cyber intelligence. So this system is able to aggregate information from multiple sensors that are deployed on the field. And with the field, I mean directly within the city, and those could be or on board the vehicles. And those sensors can gather any kind of information: the quality of the air, the pollution emissions, the fuel consumption, so the data that are relevant to the emissions and the quality of our air. But those could include also, of course, the information that are relevant to the positions of the various vehicles, the security of our city. Those information, of course, are too much to be analyzed by a human operator. So we leverage on the AI and big data techniques to elaborate the information and to present to the operators only the relevant data. If we have a security operator, we will show for instance, the areas that are much crowded, so that where something is going to happen. If it is someone with a stakeholder who needs information on the pollution of the area, we show the polluted areas, for instance, the concentrations of the chemicals, and we georeference them. Of course, all those information are tracked, are stored and logged over time to allow further analysis and post analysis to improve then the efficiency of the systems in terms of security, but also energy efficiency, to reduce the pollution, to maybe replan the routes of the buses or of a fleet of trucks that are relevant to collection of garbage. And this system, considering that is implemented to support the decision makers, is a system that is not designed for specialists. It's a system that can be used by the real decision makers that must not be expert of computer science, for instance. So it is possible to interact with the system in an intuitive and simplified way, such as a chatbot or using voice commands in natural language. So how we have contributed to smart mobility in a couple of use cases that I'm going to present. The first case I want to present is the Buenos Aires city. So here we have taken a fleet of 6,000 buses. Some were already equipped with video surveillance systems and sensors. Some others needed to be equipped with new sensors. We improved the fleet. We have installed our onboard unit to gather information regarding security, but also energy efficiency and pollution. And we have provided the SCADA system to manage the fleet, to allow the operators identify the inefficiencies. And this was so successful that we were also able to extend the platform implementation and the services to the Buenos Aires province and the neighborhoods. So now the solution manages more than 35,000 buses, and we have also developed the application for the public. So the idea here is that with such a big number of buses that are connected to the same information system, here we have really a lot of data that can be used by the Buenos Aires city to improve the efficiency of their bus fleet in terms of energy saving. So if we are able to reduce the energy consumption of those 35,000 buses, we are a step forward to make transportation much more sustainable for such a crowded city as Buenos Aires is. And of course, as cybersecurity division is very linked to the city of Genova, I'm based in Genova, for instance, the second case I want to present is relevant to my city. So we have implemented the full-fledged mobility management system from the application to the smart signs to the security, traffic lights management, sensor deployment and gathering, video management system, but also the port information. So everything that is relevant to the public transport in Genova is managed through a unique system, an integrated system that provides the fleet and the service management, so improves the capability of the city to identify which are the vehicles that need to be maintained before they start be less performing, also in terms of emissions. We have onboard video surveillance with real-time alerting. So thanks to the intelligent onboard system, we are not only making only the mobility smart and more sustainable, but also more secure. And this is particularly important in this COVID pandemic period. And considering that is possible also to control the traffic lights, through the system, it is possible also to make the traffic flows more efficient, so to reduce the pollution within the city that is relevant to, that is say created by the traffic flows over time during the day. Where do we develop these technologies? Those technologies are developed in Leonardo, and we are establishing now a network of laboratories within Italy, where we are gathering the best of breed, I would say, researchers from Italy and abroad, and bring them together to work on AI, big data, sustainable solutions, robotics, and digital solutions and cybersecurity, so to be always at the forefront of the innovation in such domains, and to apply those domains also not only to the aerospace, defense, and security, but also to smart and sustainable mobility and smart and sustainable cities. So we can start improving also the lives of the citizens, and we think that safe and efficient mobility and smart cities are an increasingly important sector, not only in the market but in the life of everybody. And we look towards the creation of smart solutions for smart nations and smart cities to be more safe, resilient, and livable. So I thank you very much for the time.
Thank you very much, Andrea. It's amazing to see the solutions that are available, and the technologies that you guys have at Leonardo that can be utilized for smart and sustainable cities. We're running a bit late, so I'm afraid we won't be able to proceed with the short Q&A session that was planned for this time, and we need to move to the next segment. It's a pity because both Chris's presentation and Andrea's presentation were extremely interesting, and I would have loved to spend more time, but unfortunately we need to move to the next section. Let us move then to the second part of the program, which consists of practical examples and best practices. We start by welcoming Mr. Trevor Gibson to share with us the case study of Future Peterborough, which is a city in the UK, approximately 160 kilometers north of London. Trevor is a smart city consultant and a sustainability expert. He currently chairs the British Standards Institute, BSI, Smart and Sustainable Cities and the Communities Committee. And he has worked on smart city projects in India, South Africa, sustainable waste management transformation in New Macedonia and Israel, and regulatory reform in the Caribbean region. He was the Smart City Leadership and Development Manager with the Opportunity Peterborough, the city's economic development body, and helped to develop and deliver the resultant Future Peterborough program, including the Circular Peterborough initiative, which aims to create a truly circular city by 2050. Trevor, thank you very much for being with us today. You have the floor.
Okay, thank you very much for the kind introduction there. I'm just going to share my screen. 1 second. Here we go. Okay, Can everyone see the screens? Yeah, okay.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, good. In view of time, I'll be as swift as I can through this, but what I'm planning to do in the next few minutes is just provide you with a case study around a relatively small city in UK terms, small to medium-sized city, and how Peterborough has structured its smart city program. So it's a sort of city scale view, if you like, looking at the types of interventions that cities can adopt and implement to move forward. I just start by looking at city challenges. I mean, basically challenges in the UK, I guess, although the context will differ, the scales of each will differ. There are, a significant number of common challenges. Everything from climate change, which we've already heard from many of the speakers so far, to health, growing population, the health impacts of that, job creation, and so on. And of course, overlying it all now is COVID-19, which although it's just worth covering very briefly, although it was a sad event and really continues to be globally, it was a real shock to social and economic systems. But we did see some short-term environmental benefits, some of which have been retained. I think the main learning from that is that significant changes, and it's relevant to today's topics really, significant changes can be implemented quickly when the pressure is there to do so, and when the drive is there and the leadership to do so. I think from a circular economy perspective, one of the things that was really shone up or exposed during the COVID outbreak was certainly in the UK, the vulnerability and complexity and length of the supply chains, the very things we needed to address the COVID challenge had to be sourced from halfway around the world, and often those supply chains broke down. So again, there's lots of lessons around preparedness, around local supply, which I'll come back to later when I talk briefly about circular economy. So I think there's a need to capture the learning from COVID-19 in all of the aspects we're talking about today, from economy, sustainability, and resilient. And smart cities can really play a key role in that. From my perspective, smarter cities have a number of things in common. We've started to hear about some of these solutions from earlier speakers. Cross-cutting, integrated solutions, learning from best practice. So this conference and others like it, are really showcasing examples around the world which other cities, other places can learn from. I think smart cities as well use technology and data mechanisms where they're going to have the best impact. It's all really about enhancing the quality of life for citizens. From my perspective, I don't think there's much point in a city becoming smarter if citizens don't feel the benefit and don't notice the benefit of that change. There's a huge amount here of not reinventing the wheel. So harnessing existing networks and communities, all of those connections that already exist, is a really powerful tool for driving things forward. And again, we've heard here about things that could be regarded as Industry 4.0, particularly in the construction sector. Smart cities embrace Industry 4.0 and encourage their businesses and organizations to adopt it. Very briefly, the Peterborough journey goes back to 2012, 2013, where Peterborough became one of the 4 Innovate UK Future, that meant smart, city demonstrators. And we developed something called the Peterborough DNA programme, which was jointly led by Opportunity Peterborough at the time, the economic development company, as you've heard, owned by the City Council. So it was jointly led by the 2 organisations. And it's had a great impact and continues to have, generating a new focus, businesses, innovation, environmental projects, and so on, as well as developing new skills. And I'll say a little bit about each of those as I go through the presentation. We've talked earlier, and one of the things I really commend the organisers for in putting today's conference together is the focus on overlapping agendas. Far too often I see and indeed attend conferences around smart cities, or a conference on sustainability and sustainable cities, conferences on resilient cities. I think what we see from the agenda today is the huge overlap of those three agendas. There may have been a time a few years ago where that separation was legitimate because people were learning about these concepts, but now, to my mind, these are virtually one and the same, and should be treated as such. So again, I'm really pleased that the focus today is on that. From a Peterborough perspective, and I won't go into any of these in detail, we've looked at our future, our focus, if you like, around smart cities, looking at, and in no particular order, talented city. You know, have we got the right skills for this smarter, exciting future? Have we got the mechanisms in place to support startups, SMEs, small businesses, encouraging entrepreneurs, and so on? We're a growing city, like many cities across the world, but we're growing quite rapidly. You know, how do we equip ourselves for that rapid growth? We want to be a more productive city. We've lost much of our manufacturing base over recent years. You know, how can we use smart to build that back? And we want to be a city that encourages and drives innovation amongst entrepreneurs. And, you know, thankfully as well, being an international city, recognizing that it is important to look outwards as look inwards, to learn from best practice, to make those international connections. I'll just pick a few examples now of the things that are happening in Peterborough. It's not a comprehensive list, and I'll only touch briefly on each one. But we have something just launched a couple of weeks ago, actually, the Smart Manufacturing Alliance, bringing large manufacturers together almost as mentors for some of the smaller and developing companies in the city. And there's a journey that businesses are able to move along with support at each stage to really develop, from short diagnostics about where they are on that Industry 4.0 journey, a more detailed analysis of the areas of focus, networking and events, you know, working with fostering partnerships between large and small businesses, looking at training. What are the training needs for businesses to adopt this smarter, more efficient, more productive world? And then a whole range of consultancy and expertise, support and advice to really help the business along that journey. We're also part of a European project called Growing 4.0, and that's building a number of tools, so a toolkit, if you like, again, to help businesses look at these smarter developing initiatives to really identify the benefits and to capture those benefits. We developed something called the Inspire series through our skills service, looking at a whole range of skills needs for a smart city, working with the main fibre provider in the city, City Fibre. You see the logo on the left of the screen there. So again, packages, working with schools, working with industry, working with the fibre network company, really educating and perhaps more importantly, inspiring young people into these new and exciting worlds of work that are open to them. So again, really exciting there, and something that's being expanded beyond the city itself. There was mention earlier of circular Peterborough in the presentation about circular construction in particular. And a few years ago, as part of our smart city movement, if you like, we focused on becoming more circular and setting that commitment to be a circular city by 2050. And it very much started from an idea amongst businesses supported by the city itself in a particular area, a particular business park. You can see the photograph there, very simple post-it notes, if you like, of things that businesses need, things that they discard on a regular basis as waste products or surplus products, and things that they're underused, from buildings to vehicles to talent and skills, things that they're willing and able to share for some mutual benefit. And we used that thinking to, develop the Circular Peterborough program, which again aims to move the city from a more linear approach, which is the traditional. It is improving, but I'm sure you're all aware of the linear, the fact that a lot of food is wasted, 30% of food wasted along the value chain. Most of our vehicles are parked for most of their lives and not in use, and even offices, they're only used at certain times of the day, and all of those things, in a way, around vehicles and around offices in particular, have also changed quite dramatically as a result of the COVID experience I mentioned previously. We came up with our approach to the circular economy of being the 7 R's. I won't go through all of them. Most of them are self-explanatory, but everything from really rethinking and redesigning what it is you manufacture, what it is you repair or whatever, from a circular perspective, so challenging the business models, if you like, all the way through to recovering waste, the inevitable waste that we're trying to drive down and get to that zero waste point, recovering energy from that through a waste to energy plant. So it's constantly about minimizing the amount of resources you put into that circle, and driving down the waste to absolute zero, if at all possible. We launched a Circular Peterborough commitment with businesses, so a range of businesses that were committed to those 7 R's, and that has continued to grow over time. And we developed and launched a Share Peterborough platform, a platform that allows businesses to basically put into action what they were doing on those post-it notes. In other words, the ability to say, I'm refurbishing my office, I have 4 desks and 6 chairs available, for somebody else to register on the same site to say, I need desks and chairs, and the algorithm essentially connects the two. And in doing so, attributes, it has to be a lot of assumptions within the algorithms and calculations, but it's assumptions. It starts to aggregate the impact of each of those small transactions on the city, from carbon reduction to diversion from landfill. Why circular economy at the city scale? Well, from our perspective, it forms a key part of the council's response, or the city's response rather, to the climate challenge. So part of the carbon reduction strategy for the city. It drives down waste, and there are huge costs attached to that, both for businesses and for councils and municipalities. There are so many elements within a circular economy that can drive innovation and be the source of new products and services, and that in turn can drive new and exciting employment opportunities. There's opportunities to improve health and livability through reducing those carbon emissions, to improving the environment, air quality, and so on. I think it works well in driving collaboration, a bit like smart cities as a concept. It has to be a collaborative city scale approach. And so I think as a topic, as a subject, it can drive that. And ultimately, from the economic development perspective, which is where I was looking at the circular economy idea, it builds a more resilient economy and city. So again, those links and overlapping agendas of resilient, smart, and sustainable. And just a few closing remarks from me. I think as the topic of this seminar is testament to this really. Cities now can capitalize on those overlapping agendas and the links between smart, sustainable and resilient for huge benefits really in very challenging times. I think a shift from linear to circular models in particular has to happen quickly. I think we'll hear more about it, hopefully, at COP26. It was great to hear from, Italian colleagues earlier that a huge amount of investment in Italy, for instance, is going into circular economy. I don't see quite that profile in the UK, but I live in hope that, COP26 might begin to change that. It should be central to the developing the local economy, and we can't expect everybody to be in line with the change without the necessary skills, focus, support for businesses, such I described it earlier, so that individuals can put theory into practice to change their behaviours towards this smart and sustainable future. And as I've mentioned several times throughout, this is about partnerships. A city council cannot achieve this on its own, neither can a charity, a business or whatever, but working together, there's some really exciting opportunities to accelerate that pace of change towards a better future. So that's all I wanted to say today, and happily take questions later on, but thank you for the opportunity to speak and thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Trevor. Thank you for sharing. It was very inspiring. And what I found extremely interesting is how you guys managed to create so many valuable partnerships and put together so many different parties to your success story in Peterborough. We need to move quickly to the next speaker for the interest of time, because we're still hoping to have time for some questions and answers at the end. The next speaker is Clara Maddalena Callegaris, who will be speaking on the case study Sharing Cities in Milan, Italy. Clara Maddalena is the head of a Smart City Unit in the city of Milan, cross-cutting unit coordinating the municipality complex innovative projects. Clara is experienced in handling smart city pilot projects as well as social innovation initiatives, with previous experience in the mobility, environment and energy department of the city of Milan. We are delighted to have her today to share with us the insights and experiences in the case study Sharing Cities and other interesting initiatives from Milan. Over to you, Clara.
Hello, first of all, hope you hear me well.
Yes.
Perfect. I would like to share you in a moment also my presentation, but first of all I wanted to thank you very much for this invitation. I'm really let's say really honored to be here and to be able to represent, as our ambassador Massimo Rustico was saying, the city of Milan. So we know we have an important role, and we are really much into this how I can say, into this here we are into this role. So just to go directly into our the role of Milano, we wanted to give you a slide. I wanted to give you a slide and very rapid. I know we don't have much time, but in any case, overview of the city of Milano and of our best case, which is, as Roberto was mentioning, is the Sharing Cities one. I realize we have, obviously, as we know, a lot of vision in common with the other main cities, European cities, such as the colleague Trevor was anticipating one moment before. So here I am. First of all, just to give you, since I know the audience is an international one, I wanted just to give you some overview of the city of Milano for those of you who maybe don't have it so clear. Obviously, we are as well a city which handles the problem of the increasing of population through these last years, and so density which is becoming higher and higher. But maybe not everybody knows that we are the second agricultural city in Milan. It's a reality. And we also are, for example, facing a trend from former industrial city and actual, let's say, service city to a new also manufacturing 4.0 city. This is the policy that we are, let's say, working on. From a point of view more linked to the sustainability, obviously we are facing the same challenges that big cities are facing. So the climate change and environment, these are just some data to tell you that we obviously have a big focus on trying to limit the, let's say, the climate challenges, and obviously we're working transversely from a policy point of view in order to face these challenges. If we look at transports, this is our big challenge as well, because we are attracting people from the overall area, metropolitan area. So we have a lot of numbers of everyday exchanges. Fortunately, we are already in a good position in terms of usage of public transports, which is almost 56%. But we know the big, let's say, economical capital city of Milano, and this gives us another important challenge in training and pushing the international scale up for Italy. So we have good data, but still we are willing to improve these in the next years. So if we want to think about just the big challenges that Milano, as a Milano municipality, as a city, is putting in first place towards the 2030 agenda, these are the main topics. For example, we are aiming at having by that date all our electric buses. Obviously, electric. This is one element that our major Sala is always confirming. But the challenges are big ones. We are aiming at 35% of reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, 12% of reduction in motorization rate, which is a very high challenge in Italy. 142 increase of population served by local public transports. We want to reduce traffic, obviously, and increase the recycling rate, which is already very good, but in any case, we want to reach the 60% and cut the amount of waste on top of reduction consumption oil. And there is a specific plan also in planting new trees in order to have a more green city. Just two words in the fact that smart city in Milan, as similarly I see to what is the vision of my colleague in England. We think that smart city is a transversal and an holistic policy, willing to. We consider that technology and technology has to be only a driver in order to have an inclusive and innovative city. So for the well-being of citizens and talking to smarter citizens. So we have an important role on that. Obviously, the topics on which we are working are very different ones. We want to push we want to push the economic leverage of the city, and we're working on smart city and smart citizens, as well as on sharing and collaborative economy, new crafts and manufacturing, hybrid enterprises and urban development, and obviously startups. But today I wanted to focus on smart district promotion, because we have a, I think, very interesting and important showcase, which is very suitable to the topics that we're facing. So the integrated approach in terms of smart city, sustainability and resilience, which is the so-called Sharing Cities project. It is an European project, so European founded on top of the municipality one, which has a very challenging objective, which is creating an almost zero emission district in the southeast area of Milan. It is a lighthouse project. It is one of the most challenging one that our municipality is facing, together with Lisbon and London. And it has 6 years of time lasting. So we are at the final year. This means that we have results to be able to share with you. It is a very challenging project, and you can see it from the budget, for example, 24 million overall, and 8 million for Milan, which is a big budget, and we have to handle only in Milan 70 partners coming from NGOs, private company, and university. And I say this is a very key factor, because one of the successes is the public and private partnership. And this kind of project is one of the big enablers for a municipality as ours. I just wanted to show you a little bit in synthesis, which is the approach, which is a really holistic approach. We call it people-place platform, because it is user-centric smart city services co-designed with citizens, which is really key for us. It uses a new brand sharing platform based on open data, which is obviously the way we need to work for future projects. In terms of infrastructure put on ground, these are obviously integrated, and we talk about low energy district, e-mobility, retrofitting of building, installation of sustainable energy management system, and smart lampposts. All of these implementation in the same area. And this was obviously a big challenge for us. The area, as you can see, Milano is, let's say, Duomo-centric. The green area is the Sharing Cities area. We selected, let's say, with a challenging purpose, because it was a former industrial area with 70% of real estate asset in G or F energy classes. So we had a lot of work to do in building retrofit in that area. It was less connected to the city center in terms of mobility. So we had these specific goals: energy consumption reduction. We wanted to enhance mobility and accessibility and intermodality, and facilitate, open data access. Obviously, the other big purpose was to attract public-private investment, because in order to have also private partnership to enable all this to happen. The measures that we put on ground are really diversified. It was an experimental project, and it enabled us to expand all these measures around the city. I mean, the success of the project was expanded. In synthesis, we have multi-tenants private buildings, and it was one of the most challenging objectives, because we had to convince private owners to, let's say, retrofit their private house. We had one social housing to retrofit, and bike sharing stations to implement. It was a system which was introduced in Milan in 2009, very successful. And but in this area, it was not integrated. So this was the purpose. Mobility areas were tested, which with the purpose of enhancing, and this starting from 2016, 2016, which was 6 years ago. The idea was of enhancing the use of e-mobility and e-sharing mobility. Nowadays it's more common, but at that time it was not so evident. And then we have tested a community car sharing in one of our building retrofitted, and pushed e-logistic and used the smart lampposts as let's say the tools to implement sensors to reveal traffic jam, to reveal any kind of environment data, which was very sensitive and important for us. This is just a very quick overview of the measures. Building retrofit, if you can see, this is an image that can reveal how was the building before our intervention on the left side and how it became after the intervention. Our bike sharing systems is the one you find in you see below. We were able, thanks to this project, to create more stations into this area of the city and connect it to the rest of the city. And on top of this, to buy 150 seats for children, because we reveal with the co-design process that family target was essential to reach another target using, let's say, this kind of sustainable mobility. And now we have all these bicycle with the child seat on the back going around in the city, and it's really a nice view. Tactical urban regeneration is another element which has been important for us in terms of very quick reaction of city planning to the situation. So we moved, let's say, as you can see from the left side, we changed some critical, let's say, urban spaces into spaces given to pedestrians, or, for example, to bike paths, in order to be able to be very flexible and adaptive in our city planning. And last but not least, a big overview and big attention has been given to the citizens. So we wanted not only to implement measures, but also to give an instrument in order to push the behavior towards a more sustainable one. So we implemented this Sharing Me app community, which is actually a way, as you will see some examples, a way of challenging each other with sustainable behaviors. In synthesis, these are the objectives that we reached, which are from building refurbishment. It means that we renovated 5 private residential buildings with 29,000 of square meters renovated, which means that we reached, let's say, 470,000 of CO2 per year saved, and 60% of energy reduction for the private owners, which is a big, important success. On shared mobility, on top of the 14 stations of e-bikes I talked to you about, we also implemented, let's say, logistic e-mobility service with 9 e-vans and 2 cargo bikes for the last mile. And also this example is going to be scaled up all over the city. 10 mobility areas with 60 charging points in order to push both private and shared e-mobility. 175 smart parking sensors, and the community car sharing service. In terms of behavioral change, the Sharing Cities app that I always welcome everyone to come and link and in order to be to participate also to our challenges. And on what concerns the sensors and the platform, 1 interoperability platform, 1 SEMS, and 28 smart lampposts. Obviously, these elements were experimental for the project, but the objective is to scale these up all over the city. And interoperability, obviously, is one of our topics in terms of policy municipality. Since I have 5 minutes more, I wanted just to give a focus on the success key factors our project. As anticipated, one of these is the co-design process. It took us really a lot of energy, but we were very scared at the beginning when we had the objective of the European project of energy efficiency on 29,000 square meters, because we were not sure that we were able to convince private owners. In the way we reached the goal and even went on top of it was the fact that we designed a very, let's say, strengthy co-design process in which we involved in different stages all the potential, let's say, owners. And this is very quickly the idea of how we did it, with first meeting in order to create trust, another meeting in order to create, to share the knowledge of what the possibility was and the aims and the final objectives for their houses was, and the third meeting, which was the real technical planning, in which our technician and the private company ones were at disposal of the citizens for, obviously, for designing perfectly the best solution for each single case. And this, as I told you, was a very, very big success, because we know that these are data on building retrofit, and these are the challenges we have to face in Milan, and in terms of old, let's say, realistic stock buildings. On the other side, in terms of, for example, mobility measures, we realized that one of the key factors was the fact of having an additive approach. So we do not want to create something new because we have to do it, but we need to implement what is already very successful in the cities, such as the sharing, bike sharing, scooter sharing, and implementing and testing thanks to these experimentation, and trying to bring at disposal of our citizens in the same area as this one, which is the Porta Romana one, different kind of sustainable tools in order for them to be able to switch from one to the other. And I think that this is really has been successful, on top of the fact that the strict work between private and public is really, I mean, a key factor for this project, but in general for the public administration from now on. Thank you, and I'm here for any question.
Thank
obviously.
you. Thank you very much, Clara. And it was a very good sharing. And I know Milan very well. I lived in Milan for several years, and I really, really hope you will manage to expand the project to the other areas of the city. It's really incredible what you have been working on. To continue our conversation, we now move to what we call a fireside chat. We have a little bit, we are a little bit pushed for time, but we try to make it work. And this next section will be with Trevor, Clara, and also a representative from a Malaysia firm to participate in the discussion. To join us as the third panelist, we are delighted to have Dr. Miguel Angel Robles Cardona, Associate Architect from Veritas Design Group, a Kuala Lumpur headquartered world's leading integrated multidisciplinary design firm, delivering architectural and innovative sustainable solutions for the built environment. Dr. Miguel currently leads several key projects at Veritas. He has widely spoken on design at several universities in Spain, Italy, and of course in Malaysia. He has participated in numerous local and international design conferences and forums, and being featured in several local and international architectural and design magazines. So after listening to the interesting approaches from Peterborough and also from Milan, it's definitely time for us to look at what's happening in Malaysia. and how we can apply some of these approaches here. Therefore, my first question will be obviously addressed to Dr. Miguel, and it's the following: smart and sustainable cities do not obviously happen overnight, and the role of some key enablers, I think it's crucial and very important. In Malaysia, we can observe that there is already some exciting progress. So the question to you, Dr. Miguel, is can you share with us some good examples of what's been going on in Malaysia? Thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Roberto, and thank you to the organizers for inviting me. I'm really honored to be surrounded by such a relevant crowd of experts, and I hope that what I would like to share with you all today is equally relevant to you as it was what you shared with us earlier. I took the liberty to prepare a few slides. I thought that was not possible for me to explain what I wanted to share without having the graphic support, but I will be as quick as I can. Importantly, something very important that we have understood throughout this time, and that has been reinforced today, is the importance of planning, the achievement of goals. And in this sense, I must say that Malaysia, despite being a growing or developing economy, it has nothing to be ashamed about, is on par with the intensity of discourse or the intensity of the discussion on the achievement of carbon neutrality as the rest of the key leading countries in Europe or America. And this is something that I hope that our international audience, particularly here today, acknowledges, or at least trusts me when I say so. The intensity is really admirable, really commendable. And in this regard, there are two documents that are important, and I would like to very briefly share just the cover. And if you are interested, you may further find them. You can download them. The first one is the Kuala Lumpur Low Carbon Society Blueprint 2030 that was created or launched in 2018. And recently, just a few weeks ago, the Kuala Lumpur Action Plan 2050 that further leverages on what the earlier plan proposed. The overall vision is becoming Kuala Lumpur becoming a carbon neutral and resilient city by 2050, and it sets a interim target of reducing the carbon emission by 70% by 2030 and further to 93% by 2050, and this is to achieve carbon neutrality by this deadline. And it also develops strategies, specific actions and strategies on how to achieving so, and how doing so in a inclusive or through an inclusive approach that includes as well the governing structures. If we were to go in detail, that I will not, each of these two plans has a series of actions or thrusts that are were briefer on the 230 plan and more elaborated on the 250. And I invite you all who are interested to further check these two documents. Now I speak as on behalf of Veritas as a design firm committed to the sustainability and to the creation of resilient and sustainable cities. And this is an objective that has accompanied us not recently, but indeed from the very foundation of the company in 1987. But it was not until 2013 when Veritas decided to create our own sustainability consultancy that has been since then for almost a decade now, 8 years now, providing sustainability consultancy services to our clients and other stakeholders. And we have throughout these years achieved over 35 green rated projects globally, certified up to platinum. And I think that is important, and you may allow me to say that I'm pretty certain that Veritas is the company in Malaysia, the design firm in Malaysia that has the most number of certified green buildings, not only in the country, but in the world. After going through this process of learning, we felt at some point that we were already knowledgeable enough to be bold enough to launch our own green rating tool that is not acknowledged by anybody, but by any national organization, but it's our own way of assessing how green our buildings are, and to comfort our clients, those who may decide not to go for the conventional rating tools, that they are as well contributing to keeping or to protecting the environment. The pandemic has taught us something, that is that sustainability is a very important subject, but there is a greater subject that is resilience. So it's a much larger subject matter that comprises sustainability as well. And in this regard, or in this context, we have created our own policy, our own framework that is resilient. It's a framework created by us to assess equally not only the sustainability quality or ability of our projects, but also their future proofness, their readiness for any hiccups that may hit us in the future. This plan, this resilient action plan, is strategized in 7 points that I will not elaborate now, but maybe in another occasion. And we are also very eager to sharing what we do, what we learn, what we research about in our Veritas lecture series that is a annual, very much awaited, I think, event that we hold every year, and we invite all our clients and other industry partners to learn or to discuss about any key matters that may be of relevance at that moment. But this is something that these initiatives that I have mentioned before are the things that we do towards our clients, towards the public, but we have also our own, from very early as 2007, our own initiatives to take care of our own carbon footprint, of our own sustainability records. And it was in 2007 when we created our Veritas Care Scheme that persuades encouraging environmentally responsible behaviors among our staff and discouraging those that are not. And much earlier than that, from 2004, so 17 years now, we launched our Veritas Fund for Excellence that persuades funding any initiative related to these three core values of environment, design, and education, that we dedicate a certain percentage of our annual profit to sustain. I would like to give a few keys before I enter into explaining two of the initiatives that our VFE, our Veritas Fund for Excellence, has carried. Some key information, very brief. Kuala Lumpur recorded in 2017 25 million metric tons of carbon emission, and being 56% of it due to transportation, while the 41% remaining, well, there is another little percentage due to other factors, was due to the stationary, or attributed to the stationary energy. Another important metric is perhaps in relation to the same, is the ratio of usage of public transport in Kuala Lumpur, that, as you may see in the central chart, is quite little, 22% only in 2020 uses public transport in Kuala Lumpur versus a 76% in cities like Barcelona. Another important factor, you will understand a bit later why I'm highlighting these three particular metrics, is about the density of the city. Despite what many may think or believe, Kuala Lumpur is a very low density city. Indeed, you can compare with the few cities that are highlighted, Seoul, Barcelona, Singapore, and Greater Kuala Lumpur, that is the area of Kuala Lumpur that does that's comprised, not only the city but the Clan Valley, has a very little density, registers a very little density. So in line with these three key metrics that I have given, the density, the usage of public transport, and after that, and the amount of carbon emitted by each of these means, we engaged recently with DBKL. DBKL is the City Hall of Kuala Lumpur on the creation of a second fabric that heals the city by relying on walking and cycling. We identify anybody who lives in Kuala Lumpur. I have lived here for 6 years, so anybody who may even visit Kuala Lumpur for a few days will immediately realize that it's a highly reliant on cars city, and the life for pedestrians or for those using bicycles is really difficult. It's really unappealing in that sense, and this is a problem. It's an issue that is inbuilt on the city urban form itself, and the same issue that we are trying to mitigate to relieve the traffic jams by creating new roads is indeed contributing to the contrary, to increase the issue of the low walkability of the city. But surprisingly, people in Malaysia, in Kuala Lumpur, are very keen, are very eager for very long already, but in the recent years even more, in cycling. Is really becoming a very popular thing. And DBKL, who acknowledges that, has started to create with us, has engaged us to do a macro strategy for a great scale non-motorized transportation path, which we have studied. We have identified a series of nodes and a series of non-motorized corridors that are that work in conjunction with another series of eco corridors that leverage on the recreational routes through rivers or hills in the city to create a second network that is superimposed to that of the vehicles that dominates the city. While doing so, we do not only contribute to reducing the cars usage, but also revitalize the areas and the neighborhoods that these cycling and pedestrian paths go through, like an example that you can see on the screen. There are a series of pilot projects that are already put in place, and this is something that we hope to see implemented and made use by the Kuala Lumpur citizens soon. Another initiative, just another 1 minute to explain, is about the area where our office has recently moved. Our headquarters is in the suburb. We have been in KLCC for 20 years, but last year we decided to move to this area that is called Wansamayu. For those who may not know, those international guests will certainly not know, is earmarked as one of the future pilot zero carbon footprint districts. So it's earmarked to achieve that objective as one of the pioneers districts in the country. And our office is this building that you can see here called 118. This is where our office is. As you can see on the right, in this yellow dotted line, is a pedestrian elevated path that connects the LRT station to the shopping mall. But besides that, or beyond that, there is no any other pedestrian or cycling path taken care, not formally. It's all very informal. What we have done, I wrap up, Roberto. What we have done here is identifying a series of nodes that are the two roundabouts where we can intervene to create more appealing spaces, and also relying on some of the existing streets and back alleys to activate the retail and the shops that open to those. Yeah, this is what I wanted to share about the initiatives that Veritas is doing in collaboration with DBKL in Kuala Lumpur.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Miguel. And it's very interesting to see. And again, unfortunately, we're a little bit pushed for time, but what you shared with us is amazing to see. And I'm very glad to know that we're making progress for pedestrians and for bicycles. That's something really that we need in KL. So while I go to the next few questions, I would ask the technical people to let me know if we have some room for maneuver. But the next question number 2, goes to Trevor. Trevor, we know that you have worked on smart city projects in other countries such as India and South Africa, and other projects in different parts of the world. So based on your experience, can you share with us briefly some critical success factors and enablers for these projects to be implemented successfully, for example, in a faster and transforming and almost high-income economy country like Malaysia? So what are some of the critical success factors that you have identified, you have observed for these projects to be realized successfully?
Okay, again, I'll be very brief. For me, and a lot of this is fairly obvious, for me, leadership is absolutely key. So that's city leadership. It doesn't mean that it's only the city or the government or the municipality that is driving this, but it needs to be led. There needs to be a very clear vision about what is to be achieved and how and by when, a roadmap, if you like. I think another key point is that, and again, personal view, this isn't just about technology. Sometimes being smart is about being smarter at the way you work with one another, identifying the right partners, working more productively. And I think sometimes city scale projects can drift a little where the focus is purely on technology. I think a third aspect I'd point out, I mentioned in my presentation, that focusing on the pain points in a city that for citizens, making sure that what you do improves the quality of life for citizens, whether that's environmental improvement, health improvement, reducing congestion, air quality, all of the things that are in there, make sure it relates back to those city priorities and the things that citizens themselves see as important. And I think finally, we always talk at these sorts of events about smart cities. And one of the big things I see when you speak to cities is that actually they don't just mean the urban area. Often, we heard from Clara about the sort of agriculture and so on. It's the same in Peterborough. There's a huge amount of rural communities, rural businesses, farming, it's all businesses that also need to be brought on board. So that smart rural aspect and most critically connecting the rural with the urban, I think is where some of the real value added can be. And it may simply be that not everybody, particularly after COVID, not everybody wants to live in the urban area. Now people want a bit more space and so on. And we should encourage that as well by making sure that rural areas are equally smart.
I like your smart rural. And one of the things that comes out very strongly is the collaboration, the partnership, private-public partnership, partnerships in general, and the ability to connect the dots and bring into the project different parties and the communities and get the buy-in from the communities. I think that's sounds from what you guys have explained to us very, very important. Another question for Dr. Miguel. We know that you are actively involved in several development projects in KL, in Kuala Lumpur. Could you share with us the state of the art and the state of play of city development in Malaysia. Some of it you've already spoken about, but in terms of stakeholders' appetite, interest, or public sector's initiatives, can you comment on some of the key trends that you have observed so far?
Yeah, I can. I will. I will be briefer this time. I would like to share about three. Sorry, we need to go a bit faster. I would like to share about three specific projects that we have done at Veritas that we are particularly proud about, and we think that have contributed very positively to the city in a perhaps, after I finish, you will understand why, in a perhaps now invisible manner, but significant in the future if things happen as we think they will. As I have mentioned, we have done over 35 green buildings, and I would like to insist on the importance of this. This is not for us a trend. We have been doing green buildings since 1987, but it's just that nobody called them LEED or GBI or green recertified buildings back then. But we have been doing the same architecture for 35 years. And indeed, every other week, we send to our clients some send out where we emphasize on some of the key features of some of the buildings that we do. So we also try to contribute to educating not only our clients, but the public about the importance of creating these kind of buildings. The first example that I would like to share, as I said, three, is about a little pedestrian bridge. Again, for those of you who have not been to Kuala Lumpur, this image may be quite shocking, quite contrasting. This is Kampong Baru on the right and KLCC Kuala Lumpur City Center on the left, are two very distinct areas, very close to each other and segregated by the river and by a highway. And you can see in the image above how close they are, the most humble people living there in the fancy business district. And it's only a few meters, it's only about 50 meters what separates one area from another. But just to get from one another, the journey, is so tedious. It's a 2 kilometers walk, it's a 30 minutes walk from the city center, from Petronas, the Twin Towers to the Masjid Jamek, the mosque in this Kampong Baru. That is a very precious part of the city to the local people of Malaysia. What we propose here, again in collaboration with DBKL as part of a more ambitious master plan initiative, is kick-starting first with the pedestrian connection of these two areas. And by doing so, by this little gesture of allowing the pedestrian to bypass the river and the highway, we permitted this previously tedious connection to happen within just 10 minutes from one side to another. And not only that, not only this has connected two communities formerly segregated, but has also become a really significant tourist attraction that has brought the people, the visitors of Kuala Lumpur City Center, of Petronas Twin Towers, to this very traditional neighborhood in the city. So has been unexpectedly, I thought that we believed that would be successful, but has been unexpectedly successful and has reactivated the economy of the adjacent area. Of course, there are design motifs that are traditional and are embedded in the design. I will not go through, but I'm pretty sure that if you Google Saloma Link, you will find that is perhaps the most photographed attraction in Malaysia at the present time, and is something that we are very proud of. So this is a example of how urban planning can bring communities together and can contribute to more resilient cities, to creating more resilient cities. And the other two examples, very brief as well, about a traditional planning requirement in Kuala Lumpur, that is the creation of this perimeter green ring around any building, this so-called 2 meters perimeter planting that was imposed back then, I believe, as an enhancement, but has proven itself to be more of a disruption by creating island developments. In some cases, you can see that even very beautiful buildings, this is Renewable by Jan Nouvel, it's not our building in KLCC, when they reach the street level, they have this presence. They are a fortress. They have a wall that separates the building, the compound from the city, making it totally inaccessible to the city. We don't believe that buildings in the city should be like this. We believe that buildings should open, that pedestrians should be able to bypass and touch the facade of the buildings. And we have done 2 projects in KLCC, in Kuala Lumpur City Center, that implement this, that we believe, this improved urban pedestrian connectivity. Star Residences, that is here, is these 3 towers. I will not explain anything about the facade, the design, the functionality of it. I will just focus on the importance of the pedestrian boulevard that we have surrendered by the foot of the development in order to create, to at least contribute to this stretch, to improving the pedestrian flow along this important axis. And in that belief, if you see at the bottom of the image, you can see how in the future we are setting the path of what the neighboring development should do. They should as well allow this footpath by the foot of their buildings. And these are a couple of images of how we try to contribute to making the city more walkable from a master plan, from even an urban implementation aspect of our buildings. And the other example is also in KLCC, very near to Petronas Twin Towers, is our Oxley Towers, 80 stories development. Again, besides the fanciness of the project itself, I will only talk about what is the urban position, the urban proposition that this project proposes. In this case, we are not only talking about walking around the building or walking tangentially around the building, but we are even cutting through the building. We are creating a pedestrian, urban corridor, a indoor street in this mega block that allows pedestrians to cut from Jalan Ampang, that is one of the busiest streets in the city, to the KLCC Park that is just behind the building, through the building itself, through the pedestrians are welcomed by this urban plaza, almost 60 meters times 60 meters plaza in front of the building, and they are funneled through the building to the rear where KLCC Park and the mosque awaits for them. So these are the 3 examples that I wanted to share about how in this very pivotal area of the city in KLCC, through 3 key projects, Veritas has contributed to improving the pedestrian connectivity and the walkability of the city.
Thank you very much for sharing these projects with us. I personally like very much the Saloma link. I think it's a great idea, and the impact of something perhaps so simple can be so important. Very quickly, Clara, city development often comes with a top-down approach. Okay, could you please share with us some transferable practices from the Share Cities project, particularly in the ways to promote and get buy-in for a project among the community? Anything that you want to share with us on that particular subject?
Yes, of course. Well, as I was saying before, the co-design process has been one of the key factors. And actually, it is because the vision that we have is of the role of the administration is really of the enabler. We agree with what also the colleagues before, Trevor, for example, but also Miguel was saying, the fact that we, as a public entity, do have to create the conditions in order to make things happen. Actually, we have to be the enabler, but then we have to be listening from one side to the city needs, so set the objectives and listen to the citizens' needs as well. And this is what I explained before, for example, has been done in terms of mobility needs, in terms of energy efficiency needs, and trying to, the co-design process, as I was explaining, was really the best example that we had in this Sharing Cities showcase, in which we tried to really tailor suit each single implementation. Obviously, it was possible. Not always is so easy to have the conditions, but it's the challenge that we have to reach the interest of the majority of our citizens, but also to listen to the more spread needs. And in this sense, we agree that we have very specific restrictions in Italy in terms of laws. So we need to set the rules and to try to enhance more and more the, let's say, the participation of the private sectors. This is, I think, the most challenging focus. And as we said, we agree a lot also with what Miguel was explaining, the fact of trying to increase accessibility in terms of infrastructure, but also social and economical accessibility. And the exchange of best practice, as we have been doing today with other cities, is what is ongoing more spreadly between cities internationally, and it's something really, really important from each city as well. So I think today it has been a wonderful example, and thank you again for the invitation.
No, thank you for your participation. I think it has been wonderful, and again, as always, it would have been nice to have probably another hour to keep on talking. Dr. Miguel, a final comment from you, and then we need to really close. Let's come back to Malaysia, and based on your experience and from your point of observation, are there any opportunities or challenges that you can observe for smart and sustainable cities development in Malaysia moving forward? Give us some challenges, but also some hope.
Well, I think that there is plenty of hope. And as I mentioned, I think that my first sentence, I'm really proud to see that Malaysia is on par with Italy or with UK on this discourse. I don't think that Malaysians are behind, and I think that this is something that Malaysians must feel really proud about. I have not witnessed such intensity of discussion as here before. And but if I can say something that relates to the local context, I think that in this context, the market is very much driven by private initiatives by the developers. Developers are really powerful in setting the trends of what's going to happen. And although DBKL and local authorities or state authorities play a key role on this transformation, developers no doubt have a very significant role to play as well in the transformation. And we are quite happy to see that more and more increasingly, some of them for marketing purposes, but many of them indeed because of a strong belief on the importance of sustainability and resilience, are opting for implementing more sustainable and more resilient projects for their own developments. And this is a trend that we can witness increasingly, perhaps activated or reactivated or reinforced because of the pandemics. And we hope that this doesn't go away when the pandemic goes away. But there is certainly a lot of things put into place, a lot of thinking, a lot of effort by authorities and increasingly by developers as well. And we are confident that we may not achieve the 2030 objectives, that is quite ambitious, but just the fact of setting ourselves in the path of achieving so is already a commendable effort that must be acknowledged.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. I just want to thank the distinguished speakers. Thank you, everyone, for your engagement in this very exciting discussion. It has been a very productive session for me, and I'm sure it's been the same for all of you. We appreciate your interest in learning more about smart and sustainable city planning. We hope that you found the session insightful, and that you are taking with you some key learnings from our esteemed speakers. I certainly am. Our next IGEM event will focus on investment in green and resilient infrastructure. It will be happening on the 25th of November. This is also an event organized in partnership with the British High Commission in Malaysia and the Embassy of Italy in Malaysia as part of the COP26 and Beyond series. Don't forget to RSVP for the event on the IGEM platform. If you're interested in learning more about our programs and activities at BCSD Malaysia, kindly visit us at bcsd.my or leave us your email in the chat box, and then we will get back to you as soon as possible. We look forward to seeing you all again soon. Do follow BCSD Malaysia on our social media. Stay safe and do stay in touch. Thank you very much, and see you soon again.
Thank you.